going to do our grades here.
Yes, sir.
And this was not the most difficult exercise. And so
But a fun exercise.
It was fun, and I tried to...
Not a miserable one like some draft grade years past.
Yeah, I tried to be the sober one on the show on these grades because somebody's got to do it, and I will be that guy and try to at least...
You got to offset my drunkenness of stupidity.
And yes, and I mean, trying to look at it...
ballery.
Try to look at it logically as what they perhaps could have missed. But Braggs, why don't you start out with your grades, my brother, and go through your excitement. And I just can't wait to listen to you talk about how Ryan Poles and the Bears are headed to the Super Bowl, damn it, sooner than later.
Yes, I will try to contain my Super Bowl excitement, but you can't hold me down long. Eric Beauchamp in the chat asking, when is the next Bears After Dark? That will be tonight at 7 p.m. Central. Corey Wooten will give his reaction to finally getting an edge rusher here at the back end of the draft, or our last pick of the draft. But we're going to start with our first pick, Caleb Williams, A+++++++. Ryan Poles, you get an A+ for spinning that magic, spinning the rock. I mean, hey, who would have thought 2 years ago when we were all sitting here arguing about learning to win? Shout out to the learning to win crowd 2 years ago that really needed the Bears to win games. Sorry, they didn't win those games. Luckily for us, they didn't, because that made the Bears have the number 1 pick 2 years in a row.
Dunk on him, Gregory.
With the Carolina. I will alley-oop, windmill, Michael Jordan, slam dunk. Didn't need to win. Didn't need to win. I'll show off these beauties right now.
Okay,
come on now.
I didn't mean to do that. I'm really sorry I just said that.
Come on, these tree trunks. You said show the legs off. That's what we're going to do
here. It was
here.
a mistake. My fault. It's on me.
Caleb Williams is an A+. Ryan Poles gets an A+ for turning that into one of the greatest moments in Chicago Bears history. For once, the Bears didn't have the number 2 pick or the number 3 pick or the number 4 pick, and having to figure out what they're going to do with their future, trying to rationalize, Jaden Daniels really isn't that much that much different than Caleb Williams. I could already hear the rationalization now had that been the case of who we drafted. Nope, this time we get the premier Bear Claw, Caleb Claw, number 1 pick, franchise quarterback, number 1 quarterback prospect to many since Andrew Luck, and he falls right into our laps, courtesy of Lovie Smith, the Indianapolis Colts, and Ryan Poles. So he is my A+++++++.
Do you remember that after the insane touchdown pass that the great Houston Texans were able to throw, they still had to go for 2.
Right.
They still had to go for 2.
And if I have to continue to toot my own horn, which I'm happy to do, as everyone knows, if you go back and watch that clip, we were A, all going crazy, and B, I was the only one on set saying, go for it. Everybody else said, take the point. And I said, go for the win right here, right now. Lovie Smith, onions, baby. Got us that number 1 pick 2 years in a row.
Shout out to the Swersk. Okay. Show's over at 1.
Show is not over at 1.
That's a good point. Show's over at some point today. Do you want to go through the next 4, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to go through them quicker. I'm sorry. Roma Dunze, A+. Didn't add the other pluses, but, man, what an ace of a pick at the number 9 pick. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah's favorite player in the draft, and we get him at 9. You know, he was number 3 on our Bears 100 draft guide, and we get him at 9. Are you kidding me? Dude has unbelievable talent. We got Keenan Allen on the team as a vet, and then we have young Keenan Allen with immense talent coming to the team right now to be mentored by older Keenan Allen. I mean, this is dream scenario that we and oh, by the way, Keenan Allen still got a lot left in the tank if you watch his year last year. So, I mean, it's just a dream scenario. I think Mel Kiper had him number 3 on his board as well. I mean, it was a pretty deep, stacked wide receiver class all the way across the board, but especially those top 3 guys. And for the Bears to come away with that was one of the more special moments. I mean, the Caleb Williams moment was awesome, but we knew it was coming. Roma Dunze falling to 9 after J.C. Latham and Michael Penix Jr. get picked. the 2 picks before was, for me, one of my favorite moments as a Bears fan. So that gets an A+, no doubt about it. So do you want to take it from here? Because I'm doing a lot of talking.
No, I'm enjoying listening to you, but
I'm
I
sure
I can. If you want to put up the Carm grades, this is more, slightly more sober. But of course, I'm giving A's. I'm not going to go, your plus. These guys aren't 6 years old. This is actual. We are professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate teachers that used to do that when I was 9.
Yeah.
Except for one Mrs. Carp who always gave me good and gave all the girls like extraordinary. Just didn't like me. I'm always going to get whenever I get a chance to call out grades, I'm teeing that one up. But A for, of course, A. And I mean, really, I should have gone A+++ for Caleb, because listen, every time this dude talks, I'm getting more and more excited about him, and it's like nearly impossible to do that. Rome is another A. The A in that one is that, and I love that Poles called it out, he was thinking about trading up. He leaned on his right-hand man, Ian Cunningham, who told him, do not do anything. Just sit there and make the pick. We don't need to give up assets. He's going to fall to us. So that, to me, is the A. I mean, we're talking about the draft. Like, there's no rocket science to taking Caleb Williams. All that stuff happened before. So this is just how I'm looking at it. In the moment, now, Karan Amagaji at 75. There's a lot of players taken after him that I'll be paying attention to, which is why I'm giving a C+.
Like?
Jonah Ellis went 1 pick later, gets to the quarterback. Fascinating story with him, too, by the way. His dad was a first-round defensive tackle. I mean, really good family history there, productive player. I'll be interested. I'll be paying attention to him. Adisa Isaac went to the Ravens. People were all over that pick. Brugler had a second-round grade on him. Like, there's just a lot. If you go,
Ravens know what they're doing.
Ravens know what they're doing. So we're taking a dude who's coming off a major calf injury, played 4 games. Yes, he's played tackle and guard, but I was having a hard time in the moment getting excited about that pick. I have, the interviews I've seen and reading up on him. Seems like a great dude, Bears fan, great story, all of it. Not ruling it out, but I'm giving it a C+. Torrey Taylor, what did I give Taylor? A C? Look, it's a luxury pick. I get it. I know he has value.
Wow, we still can't get you up on Torrey, huh?
Well, I was at an F in the moment, so I've come up from an F to a C.
So you have come up.
Yeah, I've come up. I would say I've come up significantly. Look, great story. Punters matter. And if you really didn't believe in Trenton Gill and he had a bad year last year, signing a veteran punter is going to cost you dough. So you're saving yourself money there. Like, I get all of that. And then I also look at guys like TJ Tampa, who had a second-round grade, who went after him. Like, there's a run on running backs there. I know that would have been a luxury pick too, but I'm having a hard time really getting excited about a punter when you're still building this roster. We haven't reached elite range yet, which is why I'm giving an A to Austin Booker. To trade back in, to get a guy of high talent who most people had a third-round grade on, to get him at 144 is a great job by Ryan Poles. It's an aggressive move. You're giving up a 4th-round pick next year, which, for a 5th-round pick now, which makes a whole lot of sense. It's not an overpay, and they need him. So I absolutely support that move 1,000%, and it's in the moment, it settled me down on doing the luxury thing with Torrey, which I do kind of wonder, like, if you loved Booker, why wouldn't you take him at 122 and then maybe you – but they obviously loved Torrey Taylor. And I did a lot of work, Braggs, on Taylor. Yes. So, I mean, you know all this stuff too, but first of all, you want a Carm nitpick?
I would love it.
Would you? I don't know if you would love this one, but I'm going to give you the nitpick anyway. And by the way, you're my guy, Kevin Warren. You're trying to do everything you can to get the Bears in Chicago, and I'm supporting you in it. But does Kevin Warren belong on the phone calls to the draft picks on the day of? Here's Matt Eberflus. Here's Ryan Poles.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels a little odd to me. Like, you're the president. You're the CEO. Let's not blur the lines that, Like, you can meet these dudes when they come here.
Because McCaskey isn't in there taking the next,
Yeah, like, I mean, is Virginia up? I mean, we're going to go to Georgia and then Virginia. How many calls is he going to take? And by the way, if we are going to do the calls, he was on there with, for Caleb. He was on there for Rome. Well, when Tory Taylor took his call, at the back end, they're like, should we give him to Kevin? He's like, no, it's okay. So he didn't even talk to the punter. Dog the punter. Well, you in, you out. And by the way, I don't think you should be in on these calls. Like, this is not your. It's a little too much.
It's clear that Kevin, he's the CEO, so he can do what he wants.
Yes, he can. But so, like, know your place.
Right. At the same time, like, I think we all understand now, he likes to be front facing on the camera.
Sure does.
He likes to overcook the ham, and
oh my God, you're gonna.
But at the end of the day, results are all that I care about. And Ted Phillips was behind the camera, the man behind the curtain, and anytime he did pop his head up, he'd piss me off. And the results were never there. So for Kevin Warren, as long as the results are there, then he can essentially do whatever he wants, and I'm gonna be fine with it. But the results still have to take place. But to this point, he's definitely putting himself out there, having a lot of puff piece articles written about him, and certainly putting on a show for this fight for a stadium, where he wants it. So this is how he moves. He moves in a very political way. There's no question about it.
He's in the middle of everything, and maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I just was watching him like, this feels a little bit off. But back to Tory, and I see people saying I'm going to eat my words. Listen, this is not anything to do with Tory Taylor. We got to have a little bit of separate. I'm not saying he's not going to be great. I'm not saying that the Bears don't need him. I'm just saying they got a lot of other needs, and so it just.
I think the argument is, though, that this wasn't a deep draft.
I get
so
that.
If there was ever a year you're going to take a punter who was already, from a lot of analysts, including Adam Hogue, said to be going in the 4th round or that range. This isn't a very deep draft. That is a need on the team. That is a player that can be a day one impact player. So those are the arguments for why you would take him now.
Carman, to your point, I think they could have just traded down and gotten him still. Yeah, to me, that's a better draft pick at that point. I like the Tory Taylor pick. I'm just the 4th round. That seems a little rich.
It would have been interesting too, like if they had drafted Booker and then traded in and picked Taylor. My reaction probably would have been just different. But regardless, I'm not losing sleep over it. It's fine. He's
going to end up being one of your favorite players. I guarantee it.
He probably will end up being somebody.
Guarantee it.
I'm going to talk to him.
You're going to have a locker room crush in a matter of weeks.
I already do. So this dude stopped playing Australian rules football, by the way, at 14 on my deep dive, for people who haven't done the deep dive on him. So he's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in this anymore. And then he gets out of high school, doesn't know what he wants to do. He's working at a golf course. He's doing construction. He's following the Carman Bragg's plan. I'm vending. You're laying bricks. He has no clue what he wants to do. But then he wakes up, and he realizes that he wants to try to transition from Australian to American football. So he gets himself in Pro Kick Australia. But he was like on the fence with them for 2 years nearly. In 2017, he started talking to him. So by 2019, he had enough fun or not fun doing construction and everything else. He was like, all right, I'll take a shot at it. And then Iowa comes to recruit him, and we're going to get an Iowa coach on here this week, hopefully. I went to the University of Iowa. If you don't come on the show, I'm really freaking pissed at you. But so anyway.
Maybe they know that you are this big Northwestern guy, and they're like,
that's possible.
You,
and maybe
Nick make the call.
Maybe they checked my GPA and realized that he barely graduated, and I don't want to be on that show. But somehow this guy did get through. Thank you, the University of Iowa. But he's looking at it like, I ain't going to Iowa. It's in the middle of nowhere. But then he eventually was like, oh, great family atmosphere. I can see myself there. And he had a weird thing where, because he's coming from Australia, he couldn't participate despite his popularity in NIL. So he's selling all these shirts. Punting is whatever it is. Punting is fun.
Punting is winning.
Punting is winning. So because he can't make the dough, he enrolls with a charity to try to, give back. Count the Kicks. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
So Count the Kicks, it's stillbirth prevention, raise awareness, count the kicks, like in the third trimester, counting the kicks of the baby. And he ends up raising a ton of dough, which is super freaking awesome, right? So this guy is like, okay, I can't make dough, but maybe that wasn't even that important to him. I'm sure making dough is important to everyone, but I can't, and maybe he would have done this regardless. But either way, he went and gave back, and there's videos of him with children that count the kicks. This kid might not have made it had they not been doing what needed to be done in the third trimester. So super, super tender. So this is a great guy. He's going to be supremely popular.
Yeah, super talented.
He's super talented.
A weapon
at punter.
Weapon.
So I enjoyed my.
They had 5 picks. They drafted 3 weapons and 2 guys that have high upside development type potential and titles attached to their name.
Do you know whose first game was against? Not that you root for
Purdue.
them. Yeah. Oh, you do.
Yeah,
Not
Purdue.
that you root for them in football, just in basketball where they're good.
I'm a Notre Dame football fan who's been wearing a lot of USC gear the last few days.
It's a sweet jersey.
But guess what?
You look good in it. Carman's super interesting too, by the way. This guy had an investment banking internship when he was in college. Like, he did not necessarily anticipate that he was going to make it to the NFL before, he started to develop.
Well, and we didn't,
further.
Steven wasn't able to. We only had the 4 mics live on the stage, so Steven wasn't really able to chime in while we were live at Joe's on Wheat Street, and that was a great time over there. But Steven actually has some background on this guy because they work out at the same gym, right?
Yeah, he goes to my gym in Burr Ridge. Haven't seen him there too much recently. Obviously, he was in school. Extremely bright. Obviously, he goes to Yale. Speaks 3 languages, I believe, fluently.
You've spoken with him at the gym?
Yeah, more than once.
Outlift him?
Hell no. Yeah, I wish. First time I saw him, he was a senior in high school. He's wearing this blue Yale shirt. He's 6'6", 6'7". I'm like, this guy's got to be a ball player. I go up to him. I talk to him. I ask him about it. He's like, yeah, I'm actually committed. I'm going to be playing at Yale. And at the time, I asked him, well, what position are you playing? Because he was tall, but he wasn't really that wide yet. I'm like, maybe he's a tight end. I don't know. He says offensive lineman. He was a lot taller than he was wide at that point. He's obviously added a lot of weight since then. He played mostly guard at Yale, and then they kicked him outside to offensive tackle, where he's added a lot more size and weight. I believe he had an injury last year.
Yep.
Cut his season
calf.
short. Yeah. But I think he's a developmental project. He's definitely a depth piece, and he's someone that could develop into a player that could be a fixture on the offensive line for years to come.
Well, it's the measurables, right? He's got the long arms,
yes,
and that's what you need on the outside, right? I mean, Gary Fensick spoke on that, Hogue, and the guys at Joe's. So, and in the trust and polls, process that I'm working through the last few years, look at what he did with Braxton Jones, and were people questioning that pick the day that pick was made?
No.
And, I'm sure there was somebody out there saying, look who was drafted behind him, and do we need Braxton Jones right now, developmental? So now you bring in Kieran and
Carman,
I apologize. I'll get that. I keep doing that 100 times this weekend. But an opportunity to develop this guy into potentially a starter at some point down the road, whether it's guard or tackle.
Well, what I like about it is the physical traits are there. You are drafting somebody that they look at as, I don't know, potentially elite, but impactful. So they're taking a swing on somebody that, who knows, could end up passing Braxton Jones, could swing inside. Like, I get it, and maybe I think to me it reeks of somebody who they fell in love with the personality. Like, he went up to Matt Eberflus at a golf outing the year before and told him, hey, buddy, you're going to draft me next year at Kemper Lakes. And now Flus is saying that he's got a golf partner. I'm not saying they just picked him because they loved him, but they definitely loved the intangibles on this guy.
He is extremely polite, very well-spoken. I never felt like any time I talked to him that I was being rushed out. He would take his time, and he would make sure he answered all my questions, because I was always intrigued by, he's a college athlete. My guy that covers sports, I want to talk about it. Very, very nice guy. He's going to be great in the locker room.
Well, and I think with both him and Austin Booker, who I want to talk about at least briefly, both guys that, other analysts out there said could have been higher grades, if not for the injury, could have been drafted higher, with Carman. And then with Austin Booker, a guy that we had 61st on our Bears 100 draft guide, compliments of Nick Moriano and Adam Hogue's research and a lot of the hard work they put into that. But beyond that, even beyond our guys that analyze, Austin Booker could have had a higher grade. So, these are guys that have high-end potential that fell, for different reasons, injury or otherwise, and now the Bears are taking a shot at them. So, to me, if they hit on one or the other, if they hit on both, it's literally the greatest draft in Bears history, maybe short of Butkus and Sayers, Well, I don't think you're going to – I don't know if you're ever going to you might surpass Butkus and Sayers depending on what Caleb Williams does, for the Chicago Bears. But, obviously one of the greatest, drafts in recent memory, especially if they hit on one of those two guys, especially if it's Austin Booker, in my opinion. Because,
Let me remind you about 1983, if I may. Can I do that to you?
Yes, sir. I know that they had a big impact on the 85 Bears.
Jimbo Covert, Hall of Famer, 6 overall.
Is Jimbo in? Yeah, Jimbo's in. That's right.
Speedy Willie Gault at 18. L.A. Mike
Willie Gault, rude to
at
my wife.
33.
Never forget.
Dave Dewerson, R.I.P., 64. We're 4 for 4. Tom Thayer, 91 overall, 4th round pick.
Great Tom Thayer.
The great Tom Thayer. Now, they missed on Pat Dunsmore, tight end. Only 27 games. But next up, 8th round, Richard Dent, when he's still at 8 rounds, Hall of Famer. Mark Bortz in the 8th round. And I'll stop there. So you had 2 Hall of Famers and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starters.
But who did they pass on?
Dan Marino. Which, exactly. So if they
all those great players, but if they had just drafted Dan Marino and none of those players, which one would you take?
Great point. I would take Dan Marino because he's Dan frickin' Marino.
That was a tough question because your love affair and affinity for the 85 Bears, right?
Well, yes.
Would
you trade Dan Marino for Covert, Gault, Richardson, Dewerson, Thayer, and Dent? Probably
But you're essentially trading what happened with the 85 Bears.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Well, listen, if that era, NFC Championship in 84 all the way through 88 89 where they were in there, if that team had Dan Marino, you would think they would have won more.
But that's also the beauty of this draft. And I heard Carmi V make this point as well.
Shout out Carmi V.
Shout out to Carmi V. But this draft class and this team in this window of Caleb Williams in this new era, they have an opportunity for us to stop talking about the 85 Bears. All due respect. They've had enough time in the sun. And this is this team's opportunity to put a footprint on the next generation of Bears fans to where we're not continually bringing in Bears fans to a culture of the 85 Duh Bears SNL skits and start getting into a fresh look and a fresh team and a fresh face of this organization with Caleb Williams and company. That to me is pretty profound, and it's time to vault into the next generation of the NFL and become a passing team, become an offensive team, become a team that no longer talks about Bears of yesteryear and 85s of past.
Well, yeah, and look, we can move past 85. I don't know how we got there. It's probably my fault. But
just about best drafts ever.
I understand.
And this is only 5 picks.
That team,
some pretty significant ones.
That team, as great as they were, they played in one conference championship after 85. They got smoked by the Niners in that game. And the only playoff game that they won after 85 was with Mike Tomczak at quarterback, and they beat Buddy Ryan and the Philadelphia Eagles. That was the only other win. So what could have been as far as
like Charlie the Bacon guy said, a fresh coat of paint.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. A fresh coat of paint on this Bears team is just what the doctor ordered for all of us that have been through tough times. I'm approaching 40 years old. I was 2 months old when the Bears won the Super Bowl. I would love to see one in my adult lifetime, in my actually watching the team in my life. I would love to see that. And I know just watching what it did for the Blackhawks in their run over the last 10, 12, 15 years, how many young Blackhawks fans became because of that run, and what can Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, and Montez Sweat and all these great players do for the next generation of Bears fans that are all coming in.
We all silly like the mayor.